Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to the On the Whistle podcast. We've got a special one for you today. We're talking about Kenya. Yes, that's right, the greatest country in Africa, in the world. And there's only one man we need to have on this podcast to talk about Kenya. Eric Njiru, how are you doing, brother? Welcome along to the podcast. I think this might be your first appearance on the podcast. Welcome.
Yes, that's my first time. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Eric, the main reason we've got you on the pod today was because of your coverage of the most recent Mashemeji Derby that took place last weekend. Brilliant coverage. If you don't follow him already, follow Eric Njiru on his socials. He's got some great videos with the fans, pre-match, post-match, as well as in the stadium itself. Eric, how was the game? What was the atmosphere like? It seemed brilliant inside the stadium.
Well, listen, it was electric. I've been to football matches, I've been to Champions League final in Morocco, I've been to some real good games, World Cup finals, but I've not experienced this in Kenya since I've been going for matches. Kenyans have been missing, they've missed these games because the stadiums have been closed for more than 4 years. I think the last home game that we had in Kenya for the national team was 2021. We've had Mashemeji Derby here and there, but this one felt special because a week before the derby, there was the game between Kenya and Gabon, and the whole stadium was full. And now we have a new coach, Ben McCarthy. It feels like a fresh start, like a new green leaf. So everyone wanted to come and be part of Gor Mahia and AFC Leopard. So the atmosphere was electric. Like I told you, the stadium itself takes like 22,000 people, but I saw like 10,000 people with no seats, and they were just enjoying. Everyone just wanted to be part of the moment. And it's not becoming like Tanzania or let's say like Morocco, where the stadium fills 2 hours before the game. If the game is at 4 p.m., then you go at 3 p.m., you won't find a place to sit. So right now, I'm even advising people when we go for the next games, the national team games and the Mashemeji Derby, you just need to arrive early there because on Sunday, 1 p.m., the stadium was full and the game was starting at 4 p.m.
That is incredible, Eric. To hear that, to hear of stadiums that full and the atmosphere that hyped in Kenya, you have kind of almost have to go back to, I don't even know, like the 80s or 70s, like long time. And like you say, Kenyan football has kind of been in a bit of a drought. Obviously, they had the FIFA ban for 2 years, which massively impacted football in the country, both in terms of the national side, but also kind of club football, trying to play continental football. Huge burden on the country. And then obviously things are kind of looking up now. As you say, you've got the Chan in August, which has been postponed because the stadiums weren't ready. And then hopefully kind of the AFCON in a couple years. But I want to kind of focus on the Mashemeji Derby because it's not like either of these two teams are kind of flying like, I think Kenya Police are top of the Premier League table right now. It's
Yes.
not like these are the two most successful clubs. Like, I kind of want to dig into like why is it just kind of the general football fever in the country that caused it? Like I don't understand why this kind of atmosphere was so electric and so amazing, especially kind of again considering the 0-0 draw wasn't kind of particularly the most exciting game. Like what was it? How did they get kind of fans so hyped for the game that kind of something that Kenya has really struggled to in for kind of decades?
I mean, at some point, people forget that they support these clubs. Well, we may go the whole way without going for the games. There are people who don't go for the league games. I mean, when it comes to derby, someone remembers, oh, I support Gor Mahia, I support Mashemeji Derby, I support AFC Leopard. Let me go to the stadium. The other thing is that Gor Mahia right now plays their games in Machakos. Most of their games are either in Machakos, which is like an hour from here. No, actually 90 minutes from here. And not so many people want to go to Machakos. And the other games that are played in the Eastlands, east side of the city, that is Dandora. It's a small stadium, but now this game was played in Nairobi at the Nyayo National Stadium, big stadium. So people feel, first of all, it's not Machakos, it's in the city center right now. Come and watch the game here. And it's a big game, obviously. And like I told you, that those people only go for 2 games per year. That is the home derby and the return leg. And luckily, this derby came a week after the international break, after the Harambee Stars game. So people are that obviously that feeling, that atmosphere that we're still in the mood of attending big games. So I can say that is one of the reasons why that game was full. Because like you said, they're not playing so well. Gore is not playing so well. Police are number one. AFC Leopard, I think they're number 4 or 5. But it's just that feeling that I want to be part of this game. I know friends, these guys that I went to the game with, the last time those guys came to the game was the other derby.
Mm.
And then I saw them again this Sunday. And I'm very sure I'm going to see them again in the next derby. In between now and then, they would come for the games.
that I guess that's such the challenge, right? Because Kenya is this such a football crazy country, right? Everyone lives and breathes football, but everyone in Kenya lives and breathes like Premier League football or La Liga or Serie A. Like you go, you find everyone. I remember like being in Lamu, kind of with a projector in someone's back garden, watching Real Madrid playing Mallorca or something. And people will come to that, but they'll
Yeah.
struggle to get kind of games for the local league, games for the Premier League, and kind of how does Kenyan football, and I guess specifically Gor Mahia and AFC Leopards, make that next step? So say for instance like Simba and Yanga down south in Tanzania, because they're kind of have been so successful in turning committed fans into sustainable clubs that kind of Yanga are building a new stadium so they can play more games in front of bigger crowds and not just the Kariako Derby. Like what is the next step for these clubs? How do they make that next step and make Kenya kind of relevant at a club level in the next kind of 10 years?
I mean, I think there are two things. There is commercialization and recruitment, because Gor Mahia and AFC Leopard, like you said, Simba and Yanga. I know Simba and Yanga, like Yanga is probably trying to build their own stadium, but they still use the Benjamin Mkapa Stadium. Gor Mahia on the other side, they need to make more profits, to be honest, to be able to
Mm,
buy new land. We were speaking to the president the other day, Ambrose Rachel. He said that they were given land in Kasarani by the former president Moin, but now they cannot be able to get the title for that land to develop. So they may have to find a new private land to develop their own stadium. But stadiums in Nairobi are very expensive. Land is expensive, obviously, everywhere in the city. So
mm,
they need to make some good money from their sponsorships, from their shirt sales, to be able, obviously, to build these stadiums and to have a home. Because right now, Gor Mahia has their titles in the office of the president, who is a lawyer. So if you want to see Gor Mahia trophies, like now, if you come to Kenya and want to see the trophies, they don't have an office. You just have to go to the chairman's office and see
mm,
trophies there. So for Gor Mahia, for all these things to happen, they need to commercialize things. Like they've done well right now with shirts. I mean, this year at least, they have a guy with selling the shirts. You go to a shop, it's called BBS Mall here in Nairobi. You buy the shirts. At least now they have streamlined that one. They're able to get their money from the shirt sales, but they are no longer. They are also not. They're not. They're also not able to get money from the gate tickets. You cannot tell probably how much they made or where the money goes, because most of their games you still buy tickets at the gate. You'll find so many people selling real tickets, fake tickets, and they all get you into the stadium. So that is one part that government needs really to work on to be able to maximize the profits on the gate collections. The other one is recruitment. Gor are always winning leagues. I mean, almost every season they win the league, and they go to the first round of the CAF Champions League qualifiers of the playoffs, and they get knocked out. They need to get some really good players to be able to go through that process, through that stage. They have been to the CAF Champions League group stage before, and now they need to go past that one step. You've seen Simba and Yanga, they recruit from the whole of Africa, Well, in Gorma, we have a player from Ghana, but we also need some really good players from the rest of the world, from the rest of Africa, to be able to compete with the best in Africa. Because honestly, like you said when you started, Gor Mahia and AFC Leopards are probably the biggest teams in East Africa, but Simba and Yanga have been able to commercialize their teams and their activities to compete in Africa.
mm. Man, what I would give to see this kind of Kenya become a relevant football country, kind of both at a club and national level. And you alluded to the fact that one of the reasons why the game was big was because of kind of the Harambee Stars had played there the week before. There'd been a bit of energy kind of created, an interest in Kenyan football. And one of the reasons that has been is because of the signing of Benny McCarthy to be the head coach of the Harambee Stars. Benny McCarthy, obviously one of the most legendary African footballers. My first shirt that I ever had with the name on the back was Benny McCarthy, because I was a
Ooh.
Blackburn Rovers fan. So McCarthy was on the back of my shirt. I remember growing up and kind of idolizing him. So for him to then, me playing in like out near Naivasha playing football with my McCarthy shirt, to now see him being the kind of head coach of Harambee Stars is amazing. They got off to a kind of okay start. Obviously, that 3-3 draw with Gambia, Kenya very, very lucky to get away with the 3-3, but it was exciting, right? Like it was attacking football, something we haven't seen in years and years. And obviously, that, Mohamed Bajaber goal was just phenomenal. One of the best goals of the year. I mean, if you haven't seen it yet, please go look it up. Phenomenal. But then followed it up with the loss at home to Gabon. what is the kind of energy in the country behind the signing of McCarthy, and particularly kind of gearing up towards 2027, because that's really what he's building up towards, right? Is that AFCON when it's in East Africa? How are the feelings kind of in the country towards McCarthy and this new project?
I mean, there's good feeling now. There's, we can say, some positivity right now because guys are feeling this is a fresh start. I mean, we're starting afresh. We've got some new players, like you said, Mohamed Bajaber, whose rise has been amazing. He's just coming from the Nairobi City Stars last season, actually this season, then to police, and then within 2 3 weeks, he's in the national team. I mean, these are new faces that people didn't see in the past, now and then. But for Benny, one of the reasons why people are excited about him is because it's not just another manager. You know, we're used to appointing managers from nowhere, managers that no one knows,
Mm-hmm.
managers who are coaching nowhere, or those guys who come to Africa. You know, this group of managers who come to Africa never leave. They're in Uganda today, Tanzania, they go to
Yeah.
Angola, they go to Nigeria, Ghana. But for Benny, this feels it's a statement signing by the Football Kenya Federation. This guy's been to Man United last season with Eric Tenag. He's playing the game. He he's won the Champions League, he's played for Porto, played for Man United, like you said, for Blackburn. So it feels that we've not just appointed someone to coach our team, but we've appointed a good manager. He's also
Mm.
still young, so he'll relate with our young players. So that is one of the reasons why people feel it's a fresh start and they're hopeful once again. That's why these results didn't matter to people, even if you lost in Nairobi and drew away, because it feels that now the selection is good. Because one thing I like about him is that he's not afraid to attack. The game that we played Gabon, we were trailing 2-0, and I think he threw in like three attackers towards the last 30 or 25 minutes. Go there, attack the game, give me the goals. And that is honestly what me I want to see. Like you said, the game that we played Gambia with 3-3. It's so long since we saw Arambe Stars score 3 goals against some decent team.
Mm.
I mean, we had scored, I think, 5 or 6 against Seychelles,
Against
but that's
Seychelles, yeah.
Seychelles. Yeah, so for Gambia, and Gambia were coached by the former Gor Mahia coach, Jonathan McKinstry, that was a big statement for us. That's why, like me, I want to see attacking football. We are bored with playing slow football of 1-0, nil-nil, short corners, back to the goalkeeper. Now, we want to see the likes of Bajaber, Ayunga, Olunga attack, go for the goals. I mean, because right now, I mean, we're lucky because I don't think we have a chance to qualify for the World Cup because it's long gone now. So use these games. We've got, I think, we've got games in September and October and November. Use
Mm-hmm.
those games now to know where we are as far as China is concerned and the AFCON is concerned, because now World Cup, it's a long shot for us. But for Benny, that feels good. New manager, new office, and a lot of new players, new young players that people didn't expect. That's why everyone right now is optimistic.
Kenya are in a unique position with that, is because we know we've qualified for the next AFCON, but we're not in this AFCON and we're not in the World Cup. So like you said, there's so much time to prepare for that AFCON in a way that no other country really has, aside from maybe like Uganda and Tanzania. And so I think there's a really interesting thing where Benny has the time, if he's given the time and the support, to genuinely prepare for this tournament in a way that very, very few coaches on the continent, because especially we know African football is so intense, like AFCON World Cup, AFCON World Cup, it's constant because the AFCON is so regular that you rarely have time to build up to something. So I think we're really excited for that. But one of the reasons why Benny has been brought in was with this new FKF presidency, Hussein Mohammed and McDonald Mariga, speaking of another kind of African legend, Kenya's first player to ever play in the UEFA Champions League, obviously played in that Champions League winning team in 2011. I mean, he only got like 4 or 5 minutes in the group stage, but yeah, obviously legendary player. Obviously, the brother to Victor Wanyama, another legendary Kenyan player, probably two of Kenya's best ever players, along with like Sifalunga and Dennis Oliech. But he's kind of come in. He's the VP. He's the second in command with Hussein Mohammed. They're the new kind of guys, top dogs, the ones in charge of Kenyan football, in charge of the federation. After Kenya has kind of come out of this ban, kind of come out of the wilderness, and they've got a big task on their hands, right? They're organizing the Chan, they're organizing the AFCON, and they made a big deal of this Mashemeji Derby. They were there. They made a big deal of how proud they were, excited they were. They were the ones who kind of wanted to get in a big name like Benny. How do you think they've started off in their kind of presidency, and where do you think they can kind of go from here? Is this something that we can genuinely be excited about as Kenya fans, as African football fans, in a way that to be frank, a lot of us weren't under Nick Mwendwa when he was in charge. Like, how are the kind of the vibes and the energy around those two building up towards the kind of really important couple years for Kenyan football?
I mean, a lot of people feel that it's a new start because it's like the entire office that has come in, the president, deputy president, all these NEC members. I think only one or two people returned from the previous regime. And people are hopeful because right now, like you said, we're going to a very crucial stage. We've got AFCON and China at home. So we need people who are pushing it from the top. Well, last guys were also pushing, not only that they had their own shortcomings, but for Hussein and Mariga, they feel different because Hussein is not that guy who was in the Kenyan system, like he was in the Kenyan politics, Kenyan sports for so long. He was running a tournament right here in Nairobi. It was called Super 8 for clubs that are not part of the national leagues, the teams from Nairobi East and Nairobi West. While Mariga also was a player, like you said. He won the Champions League with Inter in 2010. He was our captain for the Harambee Stars. So people feel these are guys who don't have a dark past. They don't have many issues they're coming with. So there's nothing that stops them now from working. And Mariga being there and being the one in charge of youth activities, it feels there's hope because this guy's been through the system, how he came through, went to Italy, Spain, all those countries. So young people are hopeful with him and optimistic that it's gonna help them. I mean, streamline things, like do things the right way, pay their allowances, get the training pitches ready and stuff. So there's that positivity that these two people will be able to lead the country properly. And I think they're coming at a time they're a bit lucky because we've got these two tournaments that are coming up. So these tournaments can make their name big if you get it right as far as preparing the teams are concerned. Get more good friendlies. I mean, now they've done well by getting the new coach, get the best players that we have across the world. And I mean, so far, we feel they're doing well. I mean, there's nothing that has gone bad. They're doing well. We just need to sort our leaks here and there, prize money issues, accessibility to people on TV. Those are just few things that I'm very sure they're going to sort because, as far as I'm concerned, I do think they've started quite well right now.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a good start, but obviously they've got a huge task on their hand. Essentially the biggest part of it is getting ready for the AFCON. And I want to ask you kind of for an update on that because there's a lot of people around the continent that are quite skeptical about Kenya's preparations ahead of the AFCON. Obviously, we haven't, like you said, we hadn't played any home games for 3 or 4 years. Meanwhile, Tanzania and Uganda seem like they're ready, and a lot of people are even speculating that Rwanda might be ready to step in if Kenya fails. Obviously, I think they only have one stadium, but Amahoro Stadium is amazing. So they do have a world class stadium. Are you confident that Kasarani, Nyayo, Talanta, and then there's one out west, right? That's also meant to be used for Afcon. That particularly Kasarani and Talanta will be ready in time for the AFCON? Or how confident are you that Kenya will be able to pull it off and will be able to host? Because I know the infrastructure around other things, Kenya's there, especially beyond Tanzania and Uganda in terms of tourists, people coming from around the Kenya. It's old hat for Kenya. Kenya knows what they're doing in terms of organizing, but it's the football infrastructure that Kenya doesn't have experience in the way that Tanzania and Uganda have, particularly Tanzania. How are those stadiums coming along? How confident are you that Kenya will be able to pull it off?
I mean, there's a big progress right now. I mean, this week, today is on a Wednesday. I'm very confident going by what we've seen this week because we've seen Kasran now is fully covered. The canopy has been done now, which was a major issue. The pitch, no problem because that they sorted that. So it's just now, and the seats have been installed, the entire Kasarani. So now I think they're in the final bits of finishing that stadium. I do think by the end of the year, this year, not even the end of the year, we're in April now. I think probably by August, that stadium will be ready for Chan. And
Mm-hmm.
Nyao Stadium, obviously, Nyao Stadium looks good apart from the lights. They're still testing the floodlights, which should be done in a few weeks. And those two should be ready and open to the public before even Chan and for the teams to use them. Because obviously, Gor Mahia, AFC Leopards, Tusker, KCB, all these teams, they need somewhere to play their games. For Talanta, it's coming up really well. And I do think it's going to be ready also. They have said it will be ready by the end of the year. We believe them because it's the Chinese who are constructing them and they are really quick. As far as they're paying their money, things move quickly. So I think by the end of the year, by Christmas or by next year, we'll have three stadiums ready. Three good stadiums. That is Nyayo, Kasrani, and Talanta Stadium. The other stadiums that you mentioned in Western, Eldoret, I have no hope in those ones. I don't even know why they're doing them because I mean, probably they have their own plans of trying to eat money somewhere,
Mm,
but they've always been renovating those stadiums in Western, in Eldoret. But I'm very confident that Kasarani, Nyayo, and Talanta Stadium will be ready by the turn of the year.
mm. And that's interesting, right? Because in that the one in Eldoret, that's the one that was a part of the AFCON bid, right? And Nyayo, I think, wasn't even originally part of it. Do
They'll
you
just
think
make a
that?
noise because the president comes from Eldoret. I mean,
Mm,
probably the guys who are preparing the plans, they just wanted to impress him. But
yeah.
that stadium in Eldoret is far, far, far behind, and nothing has been done there. It's been renovated a couple of times because of the athletics. They have been using them for the Olympics trials and
Mm.
guys going there to run for activities. But that stadium doesn't look anywhere close like it can host a football game right now. Kakamega, every time we see a contractor there, they're saying they're going to renovate, but nothing happens. So
Mm.
I do not have hopes in those two stadiums.
To be honest, from a hosting perspective, I think if you had an AFCON group in Eldoret or Kakamega, like I guess in terms of getting to kind of Kampala for those between those groups is easier, but in terms of like actual infrastructure, I feel like you really want to have the stadiums in Nairobi. Like it would be such a shame if, say, for
Yeah,
instance, Nyayo was ready but wasn't even being used because we were hosting games out west. Like
I
it
mean, we would have wished,
feels.
we would have wished to go to Mombasa. You know how
I
good
was about to
Mombasa
say,
is.
yeah, exactly. I think Mombasa would have been perfect as a kind of a second city in
But now
terms of
we'll be
that. But
like Qatar. You remember Qatar hosted the World Cup in one
yeah,
city, so now
exactly.
we'll have all these three stadiums in one city. I hope now we can create like somewhere where guys can go in the evening after the games
Mm,
or guys to because that is one good that Qatar did. No matter where you're coming from in those stadiums, there was one central place where all football fans were going. So I hope in Nairobi we can create something like that. You know, when you come
mm.
from Kasarani, we're going to town somewhere, and then you can meet all these fans from Morocco, from
Yeah.
Tunisia, South Africa. I think that would be cool. You know.
And I think it would be. I think it's doable, and I think even in in Abidjan, we were both there. There were so many kind of fan zones. Obviously, there wasn't like one place where everyone
Yeah.
came, but there were fan zones outside of the Cultural Palace, where the accreditation center was. They were in Trècheville and all these different places. There are fans. I think it's so doable. In Nairobi, and Nairobi is a city that kind of is big enough and has the capacity to kind of accommodate people to do all this if obviously kind of the right people are behind it. But Eric, I want to just finish one kind of big thing that the FAF is having to jump on. Hussein and McDonald, that they probably don't want to have to deal with is obviously the suspension of Patrick Matasi, who's obviously Kenya's goalkeeper. He has been Kenya's goalkeeper for quite a long time, and he's very, very high profile case of a video emerged of him essentially agreeing to match fix a match. We don't know what it was, but essentially he was told to throw away, was it 2 goals in the first half, and he would be paid quite a fair chunk of money. He has been suspended by the FKF. I think FIFA have been notified and have asked for information from the FAF so they can kind of do their own kind of procedures in terms of suspending him or investigation. Now we've seen this as a growing issue, not just in Kenya but in East Africa. We saw like a few weeks ago in Burundi, they suspended 6 players and I think it was a referee in a match fixing scandal. We've seen a lot of these kind of big betting companies coming from all over South Africa, the Netherlands, China, East Asia, and putting pressure on these leagues in East Africa where, let's be honest, the kind of there isn't as much transparency. In Kenya, for instance, even up until Azam took the TV deal, there wasn't even kind of an official broadcaster for all the games. So you didn't even know what was happening in a lot of these games. How big of an issue is this in Kenya when someone as high profile as Matasi is getting involved? And what do you think is actually the solutions for them to actually deal with this and kind of kill this off as an issue?
Well, the main issue here is that a lot of football fans were not shocked when that video came out. Because especially when we play some of these games we played last year by one during Edge Infinite's time, there's some decisions that you saw, or some saves, or some goals that you conceded that was suspicious. Well, you cannot confirm now that it was match fixing until they investigate. But I remember the games that we played Iran. There's a goal that we considered
Mm,
against Iran in the friendly. And then there are goals that we considered against Cameroon. That was the first time we considered, more than 3 goals in a long time. And people are frustrated because that AFCON, I think, would have gone to Morocco this December. Because
yeah.
Cameroon are not that good. You cannot say that. I mean, you've been following them in the last 2, 3 years. They've not been doing that well. They had issues when we were in Ivory Coast, and now I think in the last match day they drew with Eswatini or something, so they're not that good. That's what frustrates people here, because these AFCON qualifying groups, they're so close, and then we have people who are joking with our lives. We don't know what's going to happen to him when he's found guilty or not, but people are frustrated because of what is happening to him, and they were not shocked because when you tweet about these goals when you're playing, and you check the replies, everyone's like, "That's much fixing. That guy sold the game. That guy is playing for the opponent. That guy is getting money." So people already saw these things coming, and I hope when they investigate him, honestly, we can get to be told what happened and the clear and right action is taken upon him. When you say what can be done to stop this, much fixing and manipulation is a global vice. I mean, these things happen across the world. It's quite hard to stop this. These things have happened before in Kenya. They happen in Europe. They happen in Asia. They happen in South America. They happen in the African continent. It's quite hard. But like you said, in Kenya, now we're getting more games on TV. We need more games, like all of them on TV. There are some weekends that we've got, let's say, 7, 8, 6 games on TV. And then there's some weekends where, let's say, like now, last Sunday, there was only 1 game live on TV. The other 3 games on Sunday were not live on TV. So we need all these three games on TV, all the games on TV. But one thing that Kenya needs to do is that in Kenya, there's no law that criminalizes match fixing. So if Matasi is found guilty by FKF, CAF, and FIFA, he will be suspended and banned from football for, like, let's say 10 years or something. Yeah, and you'll be told to pay some fine. But what happens to the guys who are fixing the games, the guys who come to speak to him? Nothing happens to them, or they will be taken to court and charged with a less offense that is, like, let's say, bribery.
Yeah.
But this match fixing and match manipulation is not a crime in Kenya. That is the sad bit. So Parliament and FKF, they have to come up with the laws to criminalize this match fixing. Without that, guys will continue fixing matches and just walk scot-free. And the guys who are in football system are the ones who are going to be suffering, because all these players will be found guilty, or if they found guilty, they'll be suspended 10 years or 5 years or something. But the guys who fix, they'll continue going to other teams, to other players, to other goalkeepers. So for me, that is the main key thing. Let's come up with a law to criminalize match fixing in Kenya.
Kenyan lawmakers, Hussein McDonald, you've heard it. We need to deal with it, because it is such a huge problem. And for a country that already has such a bad reputation in terms of corruption and these kind of things, like, for this just to be something that's so prevalent is shocking. And, well, it's not, like you say, it's not shocking in terms of being a surprise, but it's terrible to see. Eric, it's a shame to end on that note, but thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. As always, it's so great to see you, and hopefully we'll be seeing you again after the next Mashemeji Derby. Hopefully there'll be a goal.
Yeah, man. No, God have to score goals.
Exactly, because I bet that last chance. Who was it with the tap in on the volley?
It's called Sheriff Musa.
Yeah, that killed me. But anyway, we'll get on to that another time. Eric, thank you so much, brother.
Thanks for having me, man.